Well, I'm happy to be able to continue this tradition. It's a small ritual, and as you know, Confucius teaches that life is barbaric without ritual, perhaps all the more so amid the pressures and confusion and threats of bad circumstances. He says in the book of ritual that a most important time is the time before eating. That's a time before sustaining one's own life to sustain those who are no longer physically present, who are slowly becoming one with the way of heaven, as he puts it, namely the ancestors. On this occasion, it seems right to think of our intellectual and artistic ancestors. You bridge the gap between yourself and the ancestors. You bring the distant near, Confucius says, in three ways: through words, through objects and observation, the placement of things, shapes, colors, relationships, awareness of the hour, of the season, clothes. And third, through offering food or drink to the invisible. So relationships, places, colors come together this particular evening, not in a large room of tables and chairs, but in virtual faces, each within their own milieu. As for awareness of the hour and the season, it's a spring evening, plants coming into leaf, flowers blooming. I hope the trees along Bay State, the magnolias and the dogwoods are blooming now. In academic time, an unusual semester to say the least, drawing to a close, a time of completion, a time of judgment, a time of looking forward perhaps to some liberation. For words, might use something from Dante, who saw the worst, as you know, and who knew and cared about ritual, very much so in the Purgatorio, as I'm sure you remember. So I'll take from a moment in the Purgatorio, when he is partway up that liberating mountain on a rocky ledge, looking back. He's with his teacher, Virgil, who by this time, as good teachers perhaps can read Dante's mind. Virgil hauls Dante up onto that narrow rocky ledge, and they look back. But you'll notice that even as he first looks back, Dante then looks up. He uses the height he has attained, not so very much in this case, we're only in Canto 4 of the Purgatorio, but he uses that height to be amazed and to ask a question that is at once scientific, humanistic, and social, a question that indicates that reality contains more, means more than he ever thought it did. Everything seems turned around, and this calls for an astronomy question about our place in the universe, our orientation toward the source of brightness. So Dante, this first line I'll read, it says that Virgil's words incite him. We don't mean insight, we mean insight with a C, to encourage, to stir up, to even to provoke. Virgil's words, Dante says, incited me. My body tried. On hands and knees, I scrambled after him. We are indeed in a time of scrambling, until the terrace lay beneath my feet. There we sat down together, facing east in the direction we had come. What joy to look back at a path we've climbed. My eyes were first set on the shores below, and then I raised them toward the sun. I was amazed to find it fall upon our left. So Dante's mountain turns you around and points beyond itself, far beyond itself. You can't see the top. You have to climb it on trust, which is, of course, how education works. You can't know something till you know it. So you have to trust that it's there and that it's worth knowing. So this pointing, this turning are certainly aims of core, both for faculty and students, purposes to be evoked this particular evening. So we've got words, we've got placement of objects, there remains the offering of sustenance to the ancestors. For this, I and all of you will require the powers of the imagination. In the Zhou dynasty, you remember the dynasty that Confucius looks back to, wine could be shared with spirits by the use of beautiful ritual vessels of bronze. They have amazing examples of these at the MFA. I hope you've seen them, and if not, you should. Thousands and thousands of years old and full of vitality and beauty and life. So a fine wine would be heated in a certain kind of these vessels, and the spirits would come and drink of its fumes. We have, of course, neither such vessels, nor, however good what we have, so fine a wine, if any. But we have ourselves, we have the work we've done, we have our minds somewhat aware of, somewhat informed by the great spirits of the past. So if I could ask you to pick up your glass or can or bottle or whatever it may be, and to recall with me Keats's lines, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter." And to think that tasted wines are sweet, but those untasted sweeter. Or to recall Emily Dickinson when she says, "I taste a liquor never brewed." To imagine, in other words, that the glass in your hand holds no ordinary beverage, but rather an amazing draught of vintage from the deep delved earth, as Keats has it. Now, Confucius would want us to face east, like Dante and Virgil. You're welcome to do that if you can. I happen to be facing east now, the direction of beginnings. Confucius would suggest that everyone stand if it's convenient. If not, he would completely understand. And now, if you would, please, from wherever you are, simply say loudly and clearly after me this short 17-line toast. To students and their teachers. To teachers and their students.
To teachers and their students.
And therefore to the great soul dead.
And therefore to the great
soul dead.
Distant, their works near as mind.
Distant
their works near to
mind.
Those who have sought and partly found the laws of nature.
Those
who sought and partly found the laws of nature.
Those who have sought and partly found the laws of men.
Those who
Those who sought and partly found the laws of men.
Those who have sought and partly found the meanings of men.
Those who have
sought
and partly found the meanings of men.
To the heroes.
To the
To the
heroes.
heroes.
To the thinkers.
To the thinkers.
To the makers.
To the makers.
To the observers.
The
The observers.
To the inspired.
To the inspired.
Together with us.
Together with us.
Together with us.
Together with us. Hey, there I am.
Live here in our time.
Alive here. Our time.
Our time.
The life of the mind. And the life of the spirit.
And
The life of the Spirit.
To these, let us drink before we eat.
To these, let us drink.
before we eat.
And once you have sipped your amazing wine, the ritual is complete. Wonderful stuff.